Hello. Okay, my research title is The Effects of Explicit Instruction of Structural Guidance on Story Retelling on Language Comprehension in a Kindergarten Classroom. Okay, so my research question is what are the effects of explicit instruction using the retelling strategy on language comprehension in a kindergarten classroom? So moving on to my dependent variable, which is language comprehension, I initially really dove into the literature about reading comprehension and specifically looked at the simple view of reading, which basically states that word recognition combined with language comprehension equals a skilled reader. Um, Now, specifically for kindergarten, the standards really point in the direction of the importance of language comprehension. So the two standards that I'm focusing on to guide my research is orally retell a text after listening to it out loud and include the main topic and details, and then also demonstrate comprehension of age and appropriate text through speaking or writing. So as you can see, both of these standards really target the importance of language comprehension for kindergartners as a foundational skill for becoming a skilled reader. Okay, moving into my independent variable. My independent variable is story retelling. And retelling is basically the practice of retelling a story in a student's own words orally. So through the literature, I found that oral language is a critical skill for literacy and especially language comprehension. Um, Specifically, this practice is going to be really good for my students because majority of my students are English language learners. Um, and so their oral language is something they really need to increase and practice. So that's why I specifically chose this one. So the study that I'm really using to guide my intervention is the effects of structural guidance in story retelling on children's dictation of original stories. So this study was statistically significant in finding that it did enhance students' language comprehension. Yeah. For my pre and post assessment, I have chosen the cubed benchmark assessment narrative language measures listening. This really gives a good understanding of a student's language comprehension. And on the next slide, I'm going to show you what the paper version looks like. But then there's also, the data will be collected by audio. So it's both audio and a paper. So I'll show you on the next slide. Okay, so this is the paper and it's basically a script of everything I have to say. So I read them one story in the beginning and I ask them to tell me that exact same story and I don't score that one. Then we do the exact same thing but a longer story and they're asked to tell me that exact same story using as many details as they can. As they're doing that, I'm checking off all the things on the retell portion. So all the things that they're saying, whether it's a 2 or a 1, I'm checking that. And then after that, I ask them questions that have to do with the factual things from the story. I do vocab questions and then also inferential reasoning questions. Those from the retell and the questions, that's added up to give them their final language comprehension score. So for my progress monitoring assessment, it is the exact same assessment that I'm giving for my pre and post. It's still the cubed NLM assessment progress monitoring. So it's still done paper and audio. As you can see, the progress monitoring looks the exact same. It just doesn't have that initial practice story. We just dive straight into the long story and then I go through the same routine. Also, I forgot to mention that this assessment is done one-on-one. So it's just me and the student and yes, it's the exact same. Okay, so scope and sequence. I have chosen to just show 1 week because this is kind of how all of the weeks are going to be set up. So on the first day, I model the skill, and my intervention is during the time of their reader's workshop block. So I also really had to make sure that the things I was teaching also aligned to the curriculum while also hitting the standards that I've chosen to guide my research, which was main idea and key details. So I really made sure that that aligned every single week. This week specifically, we were talking about comparing narrative stories versus informational texts. So, as you can see, the first day I model the skill. And essentially, every day we're doing some kind of retelling. Now, it could be retelling of a different skill, and that's really what changes. But start with modeling. Then, for this day, we have 2 days of guided retell. So, that's whole group. As a class, they're doing partner talks occasionally, but we're really doing the retell together. So, one day, narrative text, next day retell of informational text, and then on the last day partner retells comparing narrative and informational text. So they're doing both comparing and also they're retelling. So retelling is interwoven into every day. This is kind of how most of the weeks are set up. So yes. And then here are all my references. I have my study, and all of the references I used to create this proposal. Thank you so much for listening. I can't wait to hear y'all's feedback. Thank you.